welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and I am joined by an extremely prolific writer who is here today to talk about a novel that, in a pretty short space packs a wallop. It was a really evocative world. It is so interesting, and I am so excited to talk about it. So welcome. Could you please introduce yourself and your book, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Jessup. I've been writing professionally for about over 20 years now. I don't know what that says about me. I'm old, I guess, is what it says. But most of my career is spent doing short stories, and I've gotten quite a lot of short stories published. Most of my books up until about 2020 were short story collections, things like that, or novellas. And then I had my first book published, novel published, The Silence That Binds, through Vernacular. Sadly, they're no more. But they're really great press. That's also where Natanya Barron published Queen of None first before it became this big thing through Orbit, which is really cool, I think. And then after that, I went to Underland Books, who is just a great publisher. They've been giving me awesome covers. Love the editor. Last year we did Glass House, my haunted house novel. Then this April, we did my short story collection, Skinless Man Counts to Five and Other Tales of the Macabre, which is like 20 years of my best short stories. A lot of stuff that were honorable mentions in like year's best collections, that kind of thing. So that was pretty cool. And I think 2 awards too. One of them being the Virginia Perrymore Award for Excellence in Short Stories and stuff. So that was kind of, yeah, it's kind of fun. And then this October, I've got the novel we're talking about now, Daughter of the Wormwood Star, which is, I like to roughly call my antichrist witch cult road trip novel. That's the overview. So it sounds like a bunch of keywords you tag something with online, but it's kind of been my guiding force for it. So the basic overview, so we start off like in a small college town. The main character and her friends are trying to evade serial killers that are like running rampant in their college, the university. And there's been rumors of this girl named Angelique who just transferred there, and she's interesting to say the least. Some think that she might be the Antichrist, and some say that she was raised to believe that she was like in a Satan worshiping cult and that sort of thing. So she gathers all these girls together. They start trying to survive these serial killers. They start following Angelique, and she introduces them to devil worship and all that fun stuff. And eventually they find the reason why serial killers are coming after them. So
Yeah, it is such a ride. And something that I really love about it is that it does sort of just drop you in, like there is like the action is already kind of at full tilt by the time like right as it's opening. And I'm really curious about like how you go about openings. Like how much do you decide to reveal right away and how much do you decide to obscure for later? But when you choose like this to sort of drop the reader into the deep end right away, what motivates that choice?
okay, so yeah, it really is different for every single book. This one, I literally did want to start off with a bang. I was like, because my last book, Glass House, was a very slow build. You get to know the family, you get to know like the different things going on in the haunted house, and then eventually it starts like about halfway through, things get really crazy and weird and then creepy. And this one, I'm like, I want this to be a horror novel where people will not argue whether or not it's horror from the get-go. I want people to just be just dropped in and just have it go full tilt. And I wanted to go probably more violent than my other books, but I wanted to keep it beautiful
Mm.
and make it so that it wasn't just gore for gore's sake, that kind of thing. And I wanted to talk about death, but I also kind of wanted it to be fun, which I hope comes across. It's very dark, but it should also be fun, I hope.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is fun despite being dark and pretty like explicit in the violence sometimes. And I wonder how much of that is because there is a lot of violence and it can be very shocking,
Yeah.
but the novel also kind of plays with like a sort of like dream logic and also dream pacing, you know? And I wonder if that is what, like, if that's what creates that effect. Like, how does that tie into like pacing and stuff like that for you?
That was actually a huge part of this one, was the pacing for it, because a lot of my books I don't outline, but I have like a general feeling of how it's going to be paced based on chapter length and how I start structuring the book. Usually about halfway through, I start realizing, okay, this is how it's going to be paced, this is how it's going to be going. So I go back and I kind of align everything up, and then going forward from that point, have it all move together. This one, it was kind of funny because at first I didn't want it to be too surreal, but that doesn't last very long. And I think that's just how I am as a writer. I just, I get bored if I don't have it go dreamlike and very strange. And I also at one point, like when I was writing the scenes when they're in the hospital, I started rewatching Twin Peaks.
Ooh.
And I think that kind of seeped in. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to keep going. Because at first I was like, I'm going to make this like a Paul Tremblay book. It's going to be very ambiguous. Do you know if anything supernatural is going on or not? Which I think in the first few chapters, there's that kind of vibe. It's still surreal, but it's kind of ambiguously what's real, what's not. And then that just kind of goes out the window. And it goes full tilt surreal, which is fun though too. I think that's where I just started really just having fun with it.
Yeah, I think it like, leaning into the surreality, if you want to call it, like lets you play with, surprising the reader because like cause and effect are not necessarily going to like behave the way that you think they do. And it also creates like a little bit of a sort of built-in like unreliable narrator, right? Because like who really knows what is going on, and people are doing the best they can to describe like really weird stuff, you know?
Yes, yes, that's actually